Why, hello. That beat was
Hello, hello.
funky. That beat
Every
was
time, baby.
funky every time. Like, can we just make that the episode? Just that behind everything? Damn. Damn.
See your behind the screens comment that just says, "Dang, that beat is so funky."
It is. It is funky. All right, Gil, you ready to go in on this? Let me get myself nice and situated.
I've been so excited about this episode, about the conclusion, if you will.
This is the conclusion. So let's hop right in. From Milford to LA, to Texas, to Arkansas, no one could stop John Romulus Brinkley's empire. He owned the radio. He owned the goat gland market. He owned the people's trust and love. He owned hospitals. He owned mansions, boats, and a literal legion of cars. The top charlatan of the age was about to be turned upside down because in comes his arch nemesis. In comes the hero of the story. Good evening, morning, afternoon, night, whenever you're listening to this, and welcome to the Black Cat Report and episode 126. I am Joey, and with me is Gilly Bobby Brown, Gildoff, Gilliam Shatner, Gilda Ray, Gilliam Wallace, and maybe his best name, Gil.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Thank you
Yeah.
for such a resounding introduction.
Yeah, it took me a while to actually. It took me longer to make up those names than everything else. Honestly, I was trying to sit there. It took me longer to make up those
The
names than
script
write
has been
this
done
script.
weeks. For
Yeah,
weeks, the script's been
yeah,
done. You were like, Gilles de Rais? No, Gil de Rais. Yes, that's it.
yes. And if you don't know who Gil de Rais is, he was a medieval child murderer. So, there you go. If you did not know, well, we are excited to get to the conclusion and wrap up this series. I mean, I am really tired of learning about goat balls and the surgeries. It is absorbing into my brain at the moment, and I don't think I want that. I do love the other parts of this though, but if you knew how much goat testicle information I have waded through to get to this knowledge brain, this goat brain, so to speak, to get these episodes written, you'd think there was something wrong with me. And now, in fact, there is. But we'll put that aside. We'll wade through that. Before we grab our shovel and dig ourselves out of this pit, we're going to remind you of some very, 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 very important dates coming up for us. First, we have Beer, Booze, and Boogeymen live on April 5th at 7:30. Gil, do you want to explain how people can get involved with that?
Yes. So super fucking easy. First off, all you have to remember, ghost dot beer. GHOST dot BEER. You go to ghost dot beer. You'll find links to everything, including how to submit your own stories. This month or this coming month's episode is going to be about paranormal games and
Mm-hmm.
or the best pranks you've ever pulled. They don't have to be paranormal. Just what is the best prank you've ever done? Did you ever do something so nefarious, so mischievous? Do, did you ever embody yourself as such a ne'er do well that you were fired from multiple jobs, even though you were unemployed the whole time? We want to hear about it. Okay. So
We do.
go to ghost.beer. There's like 40 different ways to submit. You can type out and fill out a form. You can send us an email. You can share a Google Doc with us. You can click and record a live voice recording as long as you want, and we will play it on air. Or if you're real or if you're really feeling goat ballsy, you
Mm,
can call in live
we know
at
you
the
are.
time of our episode, which is 7:30, April 5th, Saturday, April 5th.
Eastern
You can
time.
call in live to the show, and we'll all chat with you. We'll all have a good laugh, and
Mhm.
hey, maybe you can scare the shit out of us. As a
Hopefully.
little side note, Joey's very easy to scare, so target him.
You could. Yeah, it's very easy. I want to tell you what scares me the most. It's giving our Patreon just a little follow because it scares me. I don't know why, but I love it. I love to boom, boom. You hear
Horrifying.
this like thing, yeah. But it's amazing. And you can scare me because it's free. You'll join, we give you a nice little free upgrade to our paid tier, and you'll get some cool perks like the Cup of Joey that will be coming out on April 7th at 10 a.m. We do a lot of our communication on Patreon as well. So come join us and
Yeah.
give us a little follow, sub, dom, like, comment wherever you are.
A little follow, sub, dom,
Do
a
that
little
one in there.
BDSM. We love it.
Hey, you know what? We love everything. That's what we do here in Black Cat
It's
Report.
true.
We even
We're
love.
easy and sleazy.
Mm-hmm. That's what they call us. It's not the dynamic duo anymore. It's easy and sleazy. All
Easy
right.
and sleazy. Yes.
Well, last week we had a wonderful rollicking time getting into John Brinkley, and now we're going to continue. But we're going to start off with just kind of catching you up with where we were. We left off with Brinkley having lost his medical license by the Kansas State Board of Medicine, as well as losing his broadcasting license for his radio station in Milford, all the while still blasting out messages, talk, and music just over the border in Mexico. Life handed him lemons, and he peed in a cup and sold it as lemonade. He had been taking all that hard earned money, and now he was starting to spend it, buying his first mansion in Del Rio, Texas, and traveling the world, this time just for fun. He was about to meet his arch nemesis face to face for the first time, and so are we. And before you get this far, I hope you gotten this far. Hope you've listened to the first two episodes because a lot of what I'm bringing up into this episode was actually talked about in the previous episodes in this series. Let's meet him. Morris Fish hmm, Morris Fishbein, the actual physician, the actual doctor who started out with the American Medical Association or the AMA in 1913 as an assistant. And eventually, he succeeded in 1924 to the editor of the JMA or the Journal for the American Medical Association. So basically, they would write a journal, send it out, and that was kind of how they got all the stuff out. Basically saying these people are quacks, these don't follow these medical things, don't go after these because they're bad for you. They were literally doing good work at this time because there were so many quacks out there that were trying to sell nothing.
They were cleaning up
So
the riffraff.
cleaning up the riffraff. Yep. Well, described by his friends as a tireless worker, and he would also keep a punishing pace. Sound like anyone we know? He worked so hard, he would have what we called nervous breakdowns along the way. He wouldn't go to the
Jeez.
doctor either. Yeah. To see what was wrong with him because why not?
He didn't trust the doctor anyways.
Yeah, he didn't trust the quacks, anyways. Exactly. Well, instead,
Yeah.
he just took a cacophony of pills that he kept in his cupboard to keep all of this in check, just like we do now. So he's more like the medical times nowadays.
Pretty futuristic.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was described by another doctor looking on it from the future that most likely his nervous breakdowns were caused by an acute sycophy. were caused by an acute sycophy or loss of consciousness because of a shortage of oxygen to the brain. So, this is pretty much to say that most of his general and work and lifestyle was just like John Brinkley.
Yeah.
hmm
Perfect antithesis.
Very much. Well, Fishbein had some crazy credits too, and I think you're going to love these, Gil, because these are awesome. Well, he advised both on the defense and the prosecution in the Leopold and Loeb trial, which was a murder trial in the 1920s of a young boy.
Mhm.
And he basically gave lawyerly advice to both sides. Um, he also, and this kind of like says a lot about his personality. He helped take a family to trial, basically took a Christian Science doctor who withheld insulin from a diabetic 6-year-old boy, and the boy died. So the Christian Science doctor was like, "You can't." Yeah, it used religion against the family.
S
Get couldn't give them any. Didn't give them any didn't give them any insulin, and the kid died. So he took that guy to trial.
Gotcha. All things
hmm
that you can get away with now. Yeah.
And apparently get away with then because unfortunately he lost the trial and the healer got away with murder because of his religious beliefs at the time. He hung out with poet Carl Sandburg and he would go to dinner and hang out with him all the time. He actually was one of the people that talked Sandburg into putting his I think he had like he was writing like small articles in like the paper and he was like, "Hey, you should make a book out of that." And he told him that and
Mm.
Carl Sandburg made a book and got a lot more famous from it. So he was kind of like in the background of
Oh,
these little
yeah.
things. He was a
That's kind of
friend
awesome.
to
Yeah.
Eugene V. Debs.
Damn. Okay.
He
Now
visited
now we're
him. Yeah, the
now we're
credits are
punching
getting big.
heavy over here.
Yep.
Yeah.
He visited him in the sanitarium that he was staying in after all of his jail stints because Eugene V. Debs was like, after all the jail stints and all the stuff happening, he just like kind of went a little like, he went a little off the rocker because he just had so much stuff happen to him. So
Yeah.
Fishbein actually went to visit him and try to convince him to leave the sanitarium instead of stay there and try these like radical surgeries that obviously this sanitarium had quacks in, was like shocking
Yeah.
him to death and doing these crazy stuff, but he thought it was better than
The electric rat lobotomy. Okay, so what we did, we got the rat from Chuck E. Cheese, and what it's gonna do is give you a lobotomy through your big foot. It's going to open up the big toe on your foot and just shove in a piece of pizza until it goes out through your ass, in through your mouth, and up into your brain. At that point, we're just gonna scrape off the front. Just gonna scrape off the front, and then this point, and this is very critical here, we're going to insert goat balls. This is one of the latest trends. It's one
Mhm.
of the newest things we just heard about.
Gotta do it. Yeah. That was called the Chuck E. Cheese lobotomy, I believe, back in the day. Founded by the founder of Chuck E. Cheese. Um,
Nobody remembers his name.
nope. Well,
Lost to time.
he never was able to get Eugene V. Debs to convince him to basically get out of this sanitarium and help him. It was very sad, and he tried his best, and he was basically like, "Look at all the quacks out here! Like they're everywhere. You can see them." But Eugene V. Debs actually believed in all this stuff that they were doing and was like, "It's gonna help me."
Yeah.
The book went into this
And
whole like I think we had talked about it. Remember the law that says like people that are like super smart will believe in anything outside of their field? And you said you were going to post it
the
up on your
the Dunning-Kruger effect.
the Dunning-Kruger
That's
effect.
what
And
it
you said
is.
because
Yeah.
Eugene V. Debs was so
Yeah.
smart. But yeah, he
Yes.
believed in all the quackery because he was like, oh, they're smart. They must know what they're, it was a fun little,
Yeah.
fun little mouse hole that we went down. Well,
Can can I throw
hit
in
it.
one thing? And this is a reminder for later. I don't know if this is going to get cut out of the main episode. Um, one of my favorite current quack doctors, um, there was just a breakthrough on Coast to Coast. And speaking with my brother-in-law, who's also a huge Coast to Coast fan, um, Yeah, we just commiserated on this for like 45 minutes
Mhm.
earlier today. So if at any point there's a good time for me to interject with a contemporary, not in the same awesome degree as Brinkley, but close,
Awesome.
contemporary, you know. Yeah, in the truest sense of the word, right? Inspiring
Mhm.
awe. Just
Yeah.
let me know because I've got a little fun fact for a current quack.
For sure. And that was a nice rhyme there. Nice little rhyme scheme. Well, this is all to say that he never sat still. He was basically said that he was playing golf while. Sorry. This is all to say that he never sat. Hmm, having trouble reading today. This is all to say that he never sat still. While he was playing golf, in between strokes, he would play gen rummy. So he just couldn't stop. Like he just couldn't stop. He was just continuously going. He was always working on something, just like Brinkley. His friends called him a rare individual because when he set his mind onto something, he would not take it off until he achieved his goal. And that would not bode too well for our goat testicle Dr. Quack friend, Dr. John Romulus Brinkley. And I do want to say, I keep calling him Romulus because that actually is his real name, John Romulus Brinkley. He changed it to John Richard Brinkley later, and there was some weird thing about why he changed it when he was younger, and it just kind of felt like he wanted to sound maybe more like American instead of like
Mm,
Romulus, which is kind of, I don't know, weird. But yeah,
I
that was
don't
a
know,
little
but that's a fucking
side note.
awesome middle name.
I love
As
Romulus. Yeah.
somebody as somebody who legally doesn't have a middle name, I would gladly take on the middle name Romulus.
Mm,
That's such like a powerful, like astral name. You know what I mean?
yeah, I like it. Well,
Romulus. You should be a wizard.
Romulus,
That kind of name.
or a wizard,
Yeah.
or a Romulan, I guess, from Star Trek. Nerd alert. Right. Well, now that we've introduced Dr. Fishbein, we're going to drop ourselves right back into where we left off last week in August of 1937. Dr. Fishbein and his family had boarded the ship, the Queen Mary, as well as John Brinkley with his family and his son's teacher. They boarded the ship together, yes. And I am going to correct something from last episode. They are actually right now on board one of the most famous ships called the Normandy. And this one was traveling back from Europe to the United States. I wanted to correct that because they had boarded the same ship going to Europe. They didn't meet on that ship. They met coming
Ah,
back
okay.
on the Normandy. So just wanted to make sure all my facts are in place.
Okay.
They boarded the ship with John Brinkley, his family, and his son's teacher. And well, it would happen that there were a few chance meetings between the families. One day on the ship, in the public kids' playroom, Fishbines and Brinkley's sons would meet. They met while playing with some toys in the public kids' playroom for the more wealthy kids, basically, the
Yeah.
ones that had the money. Well,
Yeah.
they asked each other what their dads did, and both said they were doctors. But Brinkley's son said, the other doctors don't like my dad very much.
That understatement. Yeah.
Understatement. Well, what's funny is later that day, Fishbine's son asked his dad, basically said that I met this kid. He said his dad's not very likes very much. Is there anything we can do about that? And I
No.
imagine this Fishbine had a little smile on his face and then just went right back to working on his papers and was just like, hmm, hmm, hmm.
Takes after his old man.
Mm-hmm.
Denied. Just like
Denied.
stamping his medical license.
Exactly. Well, this wasn't the only meet between their groups before they would meet in person. Brinkley's son's teacher, who was in his 20s, like we said last episode, and Morris
Mhm.
Fishbine's daughter also met and starting having a bit of a little whirlwind romance. They started by playing ping pong together and then started
Oh,
having
I bet they did.
a few late nights after that. And they were, courting each other a little bit, but that all stopped. When
Rocky
Brinkley's
did the
son's
courting,
teacher,
and he did fine.
yeah. That all stopped when Brinkley's son's teacher asked, "Do you know who my boss is?" when they had been chatting about their work. She did. And they didn't see much of each other after that. He kind of just like was like, yeah, like,
Ooh.
ooh, that's not good. Yeah.
Ooh. Ugh. Aw, I feel bad
Yeah.
for the kids.
I know.
Sounds
They're
like they
just
were
like,
having
oh
fun.
yeah, we can't. Yeah, we can't. I'm sorry. This is just
Yeah.
not gonna be good. Well, on one of the days at sea, and I really think this sets up both their personalities very well. Morris Fishbein was sitting by the pool in a lounge chair reading a book in the sun. John Brinkley approached him because he noticed him across the deck and he stopped
Mhm.
a few feet away from him, staring at him, right? Staring. Morris
Mhm.
Fishbein looked up at him, not surprisingly, just like noticingly, just like noticing there, blinked at him,
Acknowledging.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then looked right back at his book. Did not say a single word.
Ooh.
Pissed,
Ooh.
pissed Brinkley off. So Brinkley he
Ooh.
stepped a couple steps closer. But inside Brinkley, for one of the first times in his life, he couldn't bring up a word. He couldn't say a
Ooh.
word. He was so mad,
Ooh.
and he was just like,
Yeah.
and then he kind of like shifted, and just to kind of be
Just
like,
own up.
Fishbein, look at
Yeah.
me, yeah, and still
Yeah.
Fishbein, nope, looking at his book,
Ooh.
looking in the sun, staying in the sun, looking at his book, not even looking up, with
He was just
almost
reading the
a
information on the publisher of the book too. It wasn't even like an actual meaty part.
yeah, it was just a pamphlet, yeah,
1923. Fantastic. Yeah.
yeah. With an almost catty 16-year-old, hmm, Brinkley stormed off. He just stormed off, like stomping like a little 16-year-old kid running away.
I love it.
Yeah. And I feel like
Damn. This
that,
is some
like,
petty shit.
it hit the nail on the head for both of their personalities that will remain for the rest of the story.
This is like Mean Girls on a cruise. Like this is
That's
this is so
what I thought
good.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was their first meeting. The next ones would be in court. And as soon as
Ooh.
Fishbein stepped off the boat, he said to himself, I am going to destroy this charlatan. It gave him some vigor to be like, you know what? I kind of forgot about him for a minute. I'm going right back to wrecking his life.
These days for like the Fishman
Hmm.
over here,
Fish,
um
Fishbein.
yeah, Fishbinder, like they just become mass shooters. They don't stick with the
Oh,
motivation. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
this guy sounds fucking crazy. Like he literally sounds fucking crazy.
he's a bit.
Because like if you got that much motivation, you're pumping shit that hard and you're having to take pills just and I'm sure he wasn't getting paid well. I'm positive he wasn't getting paid well. He was just kind of like he was probably like
He,
higher
not
middle
really. Yeah.
management, if that makes sense, you know?
Well, I mean, he was the
Like
editor of the paper, so he kind of ran it. But and but he
the
wasn't
editor of
like
the medical paper where
he wasn't Brinkley.
they were they were actively basically character assassinating 90% of their subscribers. And he was
100%.
the editor of that
100%.
paper.
Yep.
So like you know what I'm saying? Like
I
I
would
don't know.
say he was
This
probably middle
tracks.
class. I would probably say he's middle class.
Oh yeah, no, I mean
At
he's
least
on this
at
cruise and
least
shit.
earlier.
He's doing all
Yeah.
right. No,
Yeah.
he's on this cruise and his kids are hanging out in the same room as Brinkley's kids.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're on the same level of they're walking across the same decks, you
Mhm.
know? So like he was doing okay, but I never heard of Brinkley having to take pills because he was working so hard his brain was running out of oxygen. You know what I'm saying?
Nope.
Like
Nope.
one of them was working harder than the other.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Just
Well,
saying.
what's funny
Yeah.
is like Brinkley Brinkley's main focus was this guy, and like one of the biggest things,
Mhm.
but Fishbein's main focus was this guy and 40 other people,
Yeah.
this guy was his biggest focus, obviously, because how big Brinkley was, but it was kind of like kind of trying to judge, like, this guy is a judge in in 17 cases, while the defendants in just this one case. It's kind of how I'm.
Fishbinder was Elliot Ness, and Brinkley was Al Capone. This is what's happening right now.
Sure. Sure. Yes. Yes.
Does that
That
make sense?
makes
Yeah,
total
yeah,
sense to
it
me.
makes
That I
sense.
have no idea what you're talking about. But we're going to start with the first interference in Brinkley's life, and where
Okay.
Fishbein had started setting his sights on Brinkley. And I want to say, before we go into this, we're just going to like go through these past episodes of little like roadblocks that were in Brinkley's life and who was behind them, because Morris Fishbein was right there
Mm,
pressing that button.
mm.
Let's step back in the Wayback Machine and go to Dr. Brinkley's first move. His move out to Los Angeles to build a hospital and operate on the editor for the LA newspaper in the spring of 1922. Morse Fishbein repeatedly wrote articles and sent articles to the California Medical Board exposing Brinkley's fake license, and that's why they canceled his license and stopped his hospital from being built. So, if you remember from the first episode, Brinkley had moved out to LA. He got an
Mhm.
invitation and he was like, all right, cool. He was operating on everybody. He made so much money. They were like, okay, let's build you a hospital out here. They gave him a provisionary license. They're like, you can keep operating on people, and we're going to get you that long-term license. When Fishbein had heard of that, he started peppering them with emails, emails of the foreign day, the back in the day. He was handing them, physical hand papers, hand mail, giving them to him. He was basically trying to
Damn
expose
it, Joey.
Brinkley as a fake.
Damn it. The amount of times you insert the word hand in front of any physical object. You're just like, he was reading physical books. He was reading handbooks.
Handbooks, which is an actual word, a handbook on how to build things, on how to build things. It happens.
Hand papers,
Hand
handbooks.
paper. They're things that go in your hand. Physical
I went to a
copies.
live hand show last night where people were playing music. It's just
No, that just makes it. I'm not even gonna go into where that sounds like it's going.
back to Fishbinder. Um,
Back to Fishbinder. So he got them to get rid of the license. He stopped the hospital from being built in LA. He was right behind
mhm,
that. And at this moment, Brinkley didn't know that Fishbein was doing these things. He had an he thought somebody from the AMA maybe was sending stuff to people, but he didn't know that Fishbein was doing this. So he was kind of like a little bit in the dark. And so he went back to Milford, started booming his business there. Well, Fishbein's next move was during 1925, as Brinkley had just gotten his medical diploma from, if you remember, the University of Pavia in Italy, after Brinkley had
mhm,
showered them with a banquet and gifts of cash.
yeah.
Fishbein again peppered the Italian government with facts, papers, anything you could want to know about Brinkley, how he was a charlatan, his surgeries didn't work. He even sent them basically reviews about the surgeries from his patients. And this is where we get into a cool, weird little bit of history, because Benito Mussolini himself, then the dictator, personally revoked the honorary degree from Pavia, Italy. Fishbein was talking directly to Benito Mussolini to get him to get rid of this honorary degree.
Damn, I was really hoping that like Mussolini had goat balls before he died.
No, no, no. That would be
That would have been
funny though.
so good. So
Hmm.
good.
Yeah. But he had
Damn.
that kind of clout. And which is weird, because he's still like, he had this big clout, right? But he didn't. He was
Yeah.
kind of like hated by a lot of people, and he could get to people that were in high degree of like political power at this time, but still was not
Influential.
as known.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Huh, do you know how bad you have to be to get Benito motherfucking Mussolini to
Mm-hmm.
revoke your medical license.
It was pretty damn bad.
Like, that's pretty bro.
That's awful. He did terrible
What the
things.
fuck?
I only imagine Benito Mussolini sitting next to the doctors in Kansas while he's performing the goat testicle surgery, and Benito's just like, ugh, this is awful. This is awful. You gonna pass me some of them goat balls? I'm getting a little hungry.
It's just like I'm just saying at this time, I have a feeling like Mussolini was like, yes, Mr. Mengele, Mr. Joseph Mengele, do you mind revoking that guy's medical license?
Yeah, I don't think he's
That
doing very
guy's
good things.
crazy.
Yeah, that guy's crazy. Mengele's like, oh yeah, he's crazy. Like just
Oh yeah.
awful. Like he's just like awful. He's like, dude, that dude's not good. I mean,
Hey, I
I
just
thought I
came to
was
pick up a
crazy.
shipment of twins. Oh yeah, get rid of that license.
Yeah. I thought I was
Jesus.
crazy.
Fucking Christ.
Mm-hmm.
How could we ever get rid of the Godfather?
You know what's funny? They actually didn't
The
like Brinkley's
Godfather. Yeah.
experiments. They never really liked or thought of anything high of his experiments, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, the goats weren't Aryan.
Brinkley was, though. Well,
Truth. Yeah.
Brinkley would still use that degree for the rest of his life, but he could
The
not
goats weren't
claim it to medical boards. Yeah, he still
the
used
goats
it.
weren't
It
Aryan.
didn't matter.
The goats weren't Aryan. They were Aryan. I don't. That
Nice.
needs to be
Nice.
completely cut.
No,
That was a terrible
that's
joke, but
staying.
I
That's
don't know how
staying
to.
in there.
It could fit in smooth somewhere. It's like the goats were Aryan. I don't know.
I'll figure it out.
Nah, we'll get it in production.
Well, Fishbein's next aim would be in the spring of 1930. As I said, we're going to be doing some jumping of times because we're just popping in where Fishbein jumped into his life, because Fishbein is literally going back and forth to other people as he's focusing.
Pond to pond. Yeah.
This was him. He lobbied the Kansas Medical Board with ammunition to put Brinkley's medical license in question. So Fishbein basically dug up the past clients from the Brinkley Jones Hospital, which is what the Milford, Kansas hospital was called, searching through death certificates, medical complaints, and such. He found 42 death certificates that had John R. Brinkley's name signed at the bottom. 42.
Damn.
Yeah, in the few years that he had been watching over him. The causes of death were listed as infection or fever, or some random thing that was kind of part of the surgery, but not enough to call him at fault for it,
90% of them died due to ball-related injuries.
Exactly, but not enough to be like he's the exact
Provably.
cause. Yeah, provably.
Kind of like in the way that you can't prove cigarettes cause cancer. Kind of in
not
that
100%.
same kind of way. Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's
100% they do.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
Well, with these certificates and the scorching article in the Kansas newspaper that Fishbein had supplied the information for, the Kansas Medical Board went to Brinkley's goat nut operation and 2 days later canceled his medical license in the state. Now, Brinkley hadn't been taking all of this lying down. He was, of course, using the radio to badmouth the AMA and all its musings, but that's not all he was doing. He put out ads in the newspapers and even granted an interview to the same Kansas newspaper that wrote that scathing article. He was like, "All right, you want to talk to me? Let's go." He told them, and I quote, "Do I look like I'm worrying? I'm not worrying. The American Medical Association has been fighting me for 10 years, and I've licked them every time."
Damn.
In the newspaper. He was like, no, you can't. Ain't getting on me. He was
This is
smug.
just straight up like a diss track that's coming out.
Yeah, they're dissing each other. They're going back and forth.
Damn. Hell yeah.
Yeah. He had good reason to be smug. We'll get into this. a little bit, but we'll get into some of this
Enough
other
if
stuff in a
you
little bit,
buck.
rather. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
He, Brinkley was personally hiring goon squads to beat up former clients who had run their mouths a little too much about their bad experiences with him, and to beat up the journalists who were writing bad articles about him.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
Honestly, I might get a full chest tattoo of Brinkley.
Oh, hold up on that one before we'll get into it later why you probably shouldn't. Well,
Oh
he
no.
hired he hired people from the Pinkerton agency, the same Pinkerton
I
agency
fucking
that
knew it was
helped
gonna be the
Frank
Pinkertons.
Oldfield bring
I
down the
knew it was gonna
society
be
of
the
banana. Yeah, they came
They're
back.
douchebags. They're
Yep.
douchebags. Look, if anybody's ever heard the Pinkertons and be like, "I love them," no, go fuck yourself. The Pinkertons are hard. They are Z, or they are what's the fucking Andrew Prince fucking my god. And they're mercenaries. That's what I'm trying to say. They were
They are. Yeah,
mercenaries
they were
within the
mercenaries.
quote unquote wild west of the United States. This was in their death throes. But like
Yeah.
they were fucking mercenaries. They're heartless assholes. Pirates 100% had more morals than these motherfuckers do.
Oh yeah. Well, pirates almost invented democracy, so there you go.
Basically, yeah, pirates
Yeah.
literally were like, I don't care what race or gender you are. Do you make the most sense? Are you a good person? Great. How about
Yep.
healthcare and retirement? Like,
Well, yeah, exactly. Like we talked about
literally.
in our old ones. Yeah, like we
Like,
talked about in our old episodes, our old pirate episodes.
pirates out of the shit. I mean, at the time when they were going against countries who were colonizing, massacring, genociding people, they were going
Hmm.
against those governments.
Yeah,
Pirates weren't that bad. That's all I'm going to say.
exactly. You at least had a choice
In
for some parts
context,
of it.
they were at
Yeah,
least equal with their massacres. I respect that.
100%. Well,
You know?
there was so much meddling by Fishbein that I really can't go into everything here because he's in the background of all these little things that like are gonna bring about the downfall of Brinkley.
Mm,
Well, in that same year of 1930 and into 1932, Brinkley was running for Kansas State governor, like we had talked about before in the second
hmm.
episode. Both those years, Fishbein had a hand in helping Brinkley lose the election. Fishbein himself
Fish
gave money,
behind.
literally, Fishbein himself gave money to Brinkley's first wife, Sarah Wyke, to go around Kansas right behind John Brinkley and besmirch his name,
Damn.
speaking at engagements and giving quotes to newspapers on how bad of a person John Brinkley was.
Whoa.
Yeah, she almost wrote a book about how bad he was and like everything that was going on. She was quoted as she was talking about it too, that she was like, we don't have like anything. Like she was hurting. She was in really bad shape because he had just left her.
Yeah.
Remember, he just left her and the
Yeah.
kids in Chicago, and so they had two kids at
Mm,
the time when he left because they had just lost the other one. And so
yeah.
she's like, hey, like I need help, and she was like, hey, can you help us out? Like it's alimony in a lot of ways. And so
Yeah.
she was like, can you get help us with the car or something? We need somewhere to get around." And he basically just said, "Get out of my face. I don't want to talk to you ever again." And so
Mm.
she was following around at his speaking engagements just right the next day in that town, talking and being like, "He's a terrible person. He's the worst. Don't ever trust him."
She also,
Definitely.
to back up Brinkley a little bit, I know
Hmm.
that's a scary area. That's a scary statement to make. To back up Brinkley a little bit, at the time that they did get a divorce, it
Hmm.
was, if I recall correctly from what you had stated before, correct me if I'm wrong. They both openly, actively hated each other and
They did.
completely disliked each other.
Oh,
So,
100%.
like, it was mutual on top of mutual before it got to the level of disrespect that Brinkley's like, "Go fuck yourself." She
Yeah.
was also at that time being like, "Go fuck yourself." Like, neither one of them
Yeah.
liked each other, you know? If I recall,
Yeah.
if I recall
No, you're
correctly.
right. You're right. They didn't. And they, forever hated each other.
I'm
They
not
just not ever.
projecting about my ex-partners, Joey. Okay, just calm down.
We'll never talk about this. Yeah. Well,
Yeah. No.
yeah. Well, Fishbein did also try to chase down James Crawford, Brinkley's old running mate, and he found him. We
Oh.
found him in jail, of course, for just a small little crime. He was only in there for a couple of months. I mean, I think he was in there for like 5 years. Um, Small for him.
Handful of 100 parking tickets. Everyone's got them.
Exactly. Well, he basically said in exchange for springing Crawford from jail, Crawford would
Mm-hmm.
supply damaging information on Brinkley, to which he did. He gave some old information of like, look what we did when we were running around. We stole money from people. Use that for him to bring him down, basically, in this Kansas election. Unfortunately for James Crawford, he was not sprung from jail. He was only sent some candy and a box of cigars.
Oh, that's some bullshit.
Yeah, he kind of got duped on that one. And there was another part where they actually went back again to James Crawford and were like, "Hey, like we want to help you out of this jam." I think he was out of jail at that time, and they're like, "We want to help you out of this jam." And he said, "Nah, I'm not helping you anymore. I was promised to get sprung from jail, and nobody helped me. Screw you." And left him. And I was like, "All right, well, I guess he's learning." Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, remember when I said that Brinkley wanted a bulletproof vest, and that was in the style of Al Capone, like we talked about, right? You remember?
This is how you know that something's about to happen with us as a podcast when I reach out to you, Joey, and I'm like, hey, man, I need a bulletproof vest.
You were very close to saying that earlier, though.
There's a
Oh,
reason why we weren't recording at the time.
oh, okay. Well, it makes sense. You never got that bulletproof vest, so no big deal. Well,
Shh.
mm,
Definitely didn't.
no,
I
not at all.
definitely didn't.
Gil, you're looking a little husky over there, a little full.
Been working out.
No, yeah, yeah, working out. Yeah.
I've
Well,
been having a lot of plates.
mm,
That's a bulletproof vest joke.
lifting a lot of
And,
plates.
and nobody got that. Nobody got.
No.
I'll be over here.
It's funny that I'm the one that texts you, and I'm just like, "Hey, dude, I'm at the gym," and you're like, "Oh, lift some cats." I don't know, just something.
No, but it was funny today when I didn't know what the fuck to say when you were like at the gym, and I was trying to tell you like have a good day. I was like, yeah, uh, pump iron, bro. And I was like, I don't really know what the fuck people say at the gym, and you were like, mostly it's random noises, silence, and motivational music. And I was like, so it's literally just my house with a microphone.
100%. Just a little less cat noises, just a little less meows, a tiny bit less, not that much more, just a
Slightly
little
less,
bit less.
slightly less.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
depends if it's warm and the window's open. It really depends.
Mm, yeah. Well, the reason that he decided it was necessary to get a bulletproof vest was this. In the years
Okay.
during his election, the AMA had acquired a rather violent reputation. Well, because of one
Ironic.
incident. Ironic, right?
Is this the definition of ironic? I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
American Medical Association acquired a violent reputation.
Dude, it's only the 1920s, 1930s. Psst. We never solved stuff with violence.
This was at the same time that the postmaster general could just fucking beat your ass.
You just shoot you.
Like,
Yep.
yeah, he'll just fucking shoot your ass. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, in Muscatine, Iowa, at I'm gonna say a in quotations
It's not a real
cancer
place.
clinic, created by a man named Norman G. Baker, there would be an incident that all the other quack doctors would hear about. And Norman G. Baker was a huge name in quack doctors at this point. So, three armed men drove up and parked outside the clinic. They then hid behind hedgerows and then started opening fire on the clinic as Baker and his assistant were downstairs. Baker himself had been very uneasy the past few days before this because Morris Fishbein in the newspaper had called Baker a ghoul.
Mm.
Very hefty words. Nobody in the clinic was injured, but one of the armed men was injured when Baker, who, because he knew that this stuff was probably going to happen, had his own pistol strapped to his side, took it out, and started firing back at the people, the armed men shooting into this. And so one of them got injured, and they were just like, ow! They just heard ow from the bushes. And then he saw the other two men dragging this guy back into the car and then drove away.
Son of a bitch. No, God damn it, my asshole! Oh, not my hip! It went into my asshole.
Literally, that's how it happened. And they dragged him, put him in the car, and drove away.
What year was this again? I missed that.
It was about 1931, 1932.
I kind of love it. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
Back when you could get into bar fights and it was just like, and y'all went and got drinks the next night and you were best friends, and back when you could get in just full armed shootouts, gang on gang, and everybody stopped because somebody got hit in the butt. Basically,
Yep.
It's,
Yeah.
everybody calm down. Somebody actually got hit.
Yeah. Well, it's true. Yeah, it reminds me of the Trailer Park Boys when Ricky gets
It
shot,
is.
or like somebody
This
gets
is-
shot, and he's like, "Hey, quiet! Come on, guys! Someone got hit over here. Someone's hurt over here."
Time out, asshole.
Yeah,
Just,
that's true.
you actually hit me.
Yeah, well, it's like they're
It was
just
a
shooting
different time.
because guns
Yeah.
were so inaccurate for a lot of those times. Well, this would be the whole
Yeah.
incident that put Brinkley uneasy, and he viewed it as the AMA wasn't just writing articles, but now they were starting to send out hit squads. And like we said earlier, Brinkley was also sitting out his own hit squads on journalists and stuff like that. So obviously, he's like, someone's going to do it to me. That's just the normal part of the time, you know? It's what we do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't just the constant needles in the side from Fishbein that was wrecking Brinkley. It was other doctors too. Another quack doctor named James Middlebrook moved to Del Rio, Texas, while Brinkley was in Texas at his second hospital, starting to bring up all this. He was making bukus of money, and James Middlebrook started offering knockoff surgeries, the same exact surgery that Brinkley was doing, for 1/5 of the price.
Listen here, middle butt. You can't come in here and get into my fucking surgery scheme. This is my scheme. This ain't your scheme. This is my scheme. Now you go on down to Mexico like an honest American. And you start there like I did.
Exactly. That's true. And what's funny is James Middlebrook was making enough money that he was advertising on the rival Border Blaster
1/5.
radio stations. Well, he was advertising on the rival Border Blaster stations so that he could go against him. Mm-hmm. So he was starting to make bukus of bucks, putting a dent into that empire.
Damn, this is like the nature's choice of vitamin wars. This is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it pretty much put Del Rio into a small war. No joke.
Not the first time, won't be the last.
Mm-mm. Remember how I said that Happy Harry, the transportation guy, was picking up people from the train station, right?
Yes, how could I forget?
Business was so good that he had transportation. Well, Middlebrook would send out scalpers, is what I like to call them. You could also call them like thugs, basically. These kind of thugs that he would hire to grab patients that were going to Brinkley's hospital and take them to Middlebrook's hospital. So he's basically kidnapping these people, and these people didn't really know.
It's like a bait and switch, but it's a bait and switch and switch and bait and switch. This is crazy.
Yeah.
All in the name of goat balls. People keep this in mind. This is all in the name of fucking goat balls.
It's true. I mean, if you break it down to it, it's all in the name of money, but the goat balls make the money. So,
you know what I'm saying? People don't sell Coke for the Coke. Sell it for the cash. All right. Just saying. But honestly, this is a very I'm stepping in here, Joe. Stepping in. Look, a very important lesson that my 6th grade teacher pointed out to me a long time ago. I try to never forget this. It hasn't worked out for me in my life. Maybe someday it will. The people who made money during the gold rush were not the miners. They were the ones that sold the pans and the pickaxes. Right?
Yep.
So when there's a goat rush, it is not the doctors doing the surgeries. It's the people selling the penis, ovaries, and goat balls. I didn't have a fancy rhyme ending on that one, but I was trying to, and I couldn't think of it in time. I couldn't think of it in time. It didn't come quick enough. Yeah. But the point is, sell the goat balls. Think about it.
That's
I didn't.
BCR business advice. That was our
Coming
business
at you.
corner. Mm-hmm.
It's
Well,
our business
speaking
corner.
of the business part of it, Brinkley would also post thugs at the train station so that none of his people were getting kidnapped. And while
This is the
Middlebrook,
oddest, most intimidating train station in the world.
it is,
What?
and so both of
Just
these
a bunch
guys
of
had train
pissed people
stations.
welcoming you.
Yeah,
Hello, are you here for ball surgery? Yes, I'm great. Get in our car.
exactly.
Why are they
Honestly,
so
like
mad?
both of them had thugs on the train station platform. So they're just waiting for these people. And of course, what's going to happen when you have people that are there angry with guns and knives is there's going to be violence ensuing. So there was knives flashed, guns pulled out, there was shots fired, people were getting injured. Like it was hurting the town.
Kind
The
of
town
funny.
that Brinkley had built, which is, I will
Built,
say,
yeah.
Brinkley had built. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh, Because Brinkley thought that this is my town. I brought so much
Mhm.
life to us. Surely they will kick
Mm.
out this Middlebrook imposter. But you know what? Town didn't do anything.
Didn't do
Town
shit.
did literally nothing and let the war
Damn.
happen. Let them take people. And Brinkley decided, just like he decided in Milford, Kansas, I'm going to move. It's time for me to move again. I'm tired of this town. They're not supporting me. I'll keep my house. I'm going to
Yeah.
make my main stage. I'm going to Little Rock, Arkansas. And he opened up a small hospital there.
Okay.
Well, the doors of this hospital opened on January 28th, 1938. And 2 weeks later, literally 2 weeks later after this, Brinkley was about to be exposed on the national stage as the charlatan he was.
Oh shit.
In early February of 1938, our good old buddy Morris Fishbein published The Modern Medical Charlatans, a two-part article that hit every single newsstand in the United States.
Damn.
And this, in bold and large letters, said that John Brinkley, his full name, John R. Brinkley, was a
Mhm.
medical quack. It laid out
Damn.
his professional record of never having a real medical education, his license paid for by extraordinary manipulation of political appointees, and that he had a continuous astuteness for shaking shekels from the pocket of credulous Americans.
Mm. Scathing.
Scathing, scorching and scathing. He laid everything out for everybody. The article even laid out postal crimes in it saying,
Ooh.
yep, mm-hmm,
Whoa.
mm-hmm,
Whoa.
I
Whoa, my
know.
man. Whoa. Okay, Joey, did you take your blood pressure meds today? Are you
Nope,
ready for this?
I didn't. I'm not ready for this. I wasn't ready when I heard it.
Look, everybody, we need to take a break. Joey needs to take his medication, needs to meditate for a while. This is not going to be okay. This is not going to be
Woosah,
okay. How much salt did
woosah.
you have today? How much salt did you have today? This
I
is
don't
about to
know.
be intense.
A lot of garlic salt though. It's some pasta, but it should be fine. Well,
Respect.
yeah. Well, the postal crimes, right? It said most of Brinkley's business seems to come by the way of mail. All the pamphlets that he was sending out, all the things in the mail that he was quoting. And it is this time for the post office department to do something in regard to the use of the United States mail by John R. Brinkley in his defrauding of the public. He brought up basically trying to get them to throw some charges at him because they're like, come on. Like, you do your part. Somebody. Like, where's Frank
And he,
Oldfield when I need him?
and he never returned to kill a mockingbird when he was in middle school. He's just like
Mm-hmm.
everything.
He did a Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, this is
Mhm.
literally this is like him throwing out like a photo of his like Ozempic prescription. Like this is
Yeah, yeah.
like
Literally.
it's just
Well,
like wow. I mean, okay, like like
what was that gonna do? That's fine. No big deal. It's
yeah,
just the pettiness of it. Well,
yeah, which I
funnily
respect.
enough,
But
he did actually get brought up on mail fraud charges. Not once,
mm,
but twice actually, which is kind of funny. Twice, and we'll get into the second time
oh,
later. But
okay.
on these specific mail fraud charges, he used his friends, John Brinkley, in high places at the time. Charles
Mhm.
Curtis, who was the vice president of the United States, talked to Brinkley and swept all of these charges under the rug. He basically went to the Secretary of State and he went
Yeah.
to the undersecretaries and was like, "Hey, I know
Damn.
this guy in Kansas. Let
Yeah.
it lie. Like we're good. We're good." The
Do
reason
you
that Charles
realize he
Curtis
got me elected vice president in Finland? Okay, we
Yeah,
got to take care of this dude.
yeah.
Like,
Well, there was an interesting story about that. Charles Curtis was like he was FDR's vice president, right? So everyone
yeah.
FDR was the president for like 100 years. But
Yeah.
Charles
Yeah.
Curtis wanted
Give or take. Yeah.
to get the presidency, but at this time
Mhm.
he kind of felt like, okay, I'm not gonna win. Like I'm never gonna be president of the United States.
They just
FDR has pretty
elected him
much
for
got
how
this.
many times? 3 times? He's going for 4. I give
Yeah,
up.
didn't he go for 4? Yeah, didn't he go for 4? He did get 4, I
I
think,
think he
right?
did.
Yeah, because he was in
Didn't
12
he? I know
years.
he got
I
3.
think he was 12 years.
Yeah. Well,
11,
that
because he
would be
died in
3.
office. Yeah,
But
he died in his last year. No, he
yeah.
died right after he got elected. He died right after he got elected. That was what happened. Not too far after he got
Yeah,
elected,
you
he
couldn't
died.
get rid of him. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, the reason why Charles Curtis felt like he owed him this is because Charles Curtis helped get in that spot by John Brinkley. And he felt like, oh, this is a good guy. He literally was like, John R. Brinkley's a good guy, and I'm gonna help him out. I'm gonna help him because the people
This is
love him.
unfair.
People love him. Yeah, this is unfair. He's being unfairly maligned by the AMA, you know?
Me and my wife would have never had kids without John R. Brinkley.
Mm-hmm.
I love you too, sons.
Yeah, and that's true. He didn't have great balls,
You
but he was
too.
very much.
You too.
Mhm. Hey,
Sorry. One of them's a chicken.
yeah, yeah. Well, Herbert, Herbert's
One of
got to
them's
make it
Herbert
anyway.
Jr.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
he had to support him because John R. Brinkley supported
Yeah.
him to get to the place he was. That was kind of his thing. Well,
Yeah.
now this well thought out and incredibly written two-part article that was in written by Morris Fishbein had one
Mhm.
single purpose. It wasn't just to malign him, because he
Mhm.
liked that actually. He did that. He was happy to do that. And he didn't he felt like he should. He felt like nobody else is doing it, so I'm going to do it. It
Yeah.
wasn't just to expose him either, but it was to get Brinkley into a final showdown in court. He wanted to get
Ooh.
Brinkley to sue him, which is a weird
So
thing to
he
say.
well, no, he was pushing him to a checkmate. That's what he was trying to do.
Yep.
He was just like, "No, no, no. I'm not trying to just chase pawns around the board, motherfucker. I'm going
Hmm.
for your king. And so
Yep.
I'm gonna set some shit. This makes sense. This is good moves. This is a good strategy right here."
Fishbein was a genius. He actually, what's funny is Fishbein actually did get sued for libel by Brinkley before. It was about 4 or 5 years earlier. He sued him, but it didn't go anywhere, and Fishbein knew it wasn't going anywhere.
That's exactly right. Because if he could piss him off to the point that he would sue for libel, it would create enough traction, enough steam that when he proved it wasn't libel, 90% of his publicity costs were covered just in coverage of this case. Like, it was, like, so much attention and shit and so much litigation got tied to it that by the time it was like, "Oh, it's not libel," that's a huge fucking hit. Like, that's like a cutthroat move, baby. Like this is again, he's going in for that checkmate. I see it, bro. I see it. This is
And god damn it, Gil, you're just reading the minds of my script writing.
I just opened up the fish binder and I could see what was happening. This is good.
Exactly. Just a few months after that article went out, Brinkley decided time to go for libel. He sued Fishbein and the
Yep.
AMA for
Yep.
libel, and just to add a little bit extra, he was like, I want $250,000 in damages too.
And he's a bitch.
Yep. Well, at this time, in this time, it was like the Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier, the Rumble in the hospital, the Thriller in Del Rio. And I know that both of those weren't fights between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. First one was the Rumble in Rumble in the Jungle versus
In the jungle.
Yeah, that was versus
Thrilla in Manila.
George Foreman. Yep.
George Foreman. Yeah.
Second one was Joe Frazier. The second
It
one
was
was not
awkward
Joe Frazier.
fighting a small stovetop grill, but yeah. Or tabletop grill. But but all the fat just comes off. Do they still make George Foreman's? Or did they burn down too many houses? I
think they still make them. I think so.
That's cool. They were like they're like the pancakes of air fryers, if that makes sense. I think it does. Yeah. I'm going with that.
Yeah, sure. Well, what is funny is that throughout the years of their square-offs in the public arena or even behind the scenes, both Fishbein and Brinkley had become so much alike. They both worked harder than anyone else. They both grew egos the size of Texas, because they really did both. Even Fishbein, who is a good person in this story, his ego grew, and their personalities stayed who they were, but his egos grew. Well, now their entrance to the trial could not have said enough about who they were as a person. Just like I said earlier with the way that they handled themselves when they met. Well, John R. Brinkley sat in the passenger seat of his favorite car, his fire red Cadillac with Dr. Brinkley embossed on it, and with his wife Minerva driving, and a train of cars following behind him to get to the courthouse. He made a show of it.
Tackiest shit. This is the tackiest shit, though. Like, this is gaudy before, I think, what year was this? 30s?
This is 1938.
This is gaudy, I want to say around the time of Gotti. I think Gotti was in the 30s. 20s. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Point is, this is Gotti before Gotti became a term. All right?
That's true. That's true. Well,
God damn it.
His opposite, Morris Fishbein, at this time was having a small solitary breakfast at the Roswell Hotel.
Drove a homeless nun to church.
It was close, but the Roswell Hotel, which was the former site of Dr. Brinkley's hospital in Del Rio, Texas.
Oh my God. This is, I hate to say it, he's becoming Kendrick Lamar like right now. God damn it. I know you referenced that earlier.
Yeah. He didn't know in quotations that this was his hotel. And I will
a motherfucker that researched this much didn't know.
No,
I don't believe you. I don't believe you at all. He hunted down his ex-wife and scheduled her to go to every future event a couple days later and set everything up for all the speaking engagements. And he didn't know one of his former headquarters. Yeah, come on, dude. Yeah, come on. Come on.
The point of it was,
Serena Williams was one of your exes, Drake? I had no clue. I just thought she sea-walked well. I didn't know.
Yeah, no big deal.
Well, like, the reason I just appreciate tennis. Like, come on, dude.
Tennis is amazing. The reason I bring
that
up,
but like, come on. And
the
so
reason
is
I bring
Serena.
this up, Gil. Serena's amazing. She's one of the best female athletes in history. She is the best.
No, just athlete. Yeah.
I think she's still
the best athlete in history.
She beat Margaret Court's record.
Margaret Thatcher.
No, Margaret Court, the tennis player. She beat her. She won more
Nope.
I don't even know to talk sports with you, Gil.
We're gonna fight. We're gonna fight over this. Look, Serena Williams is the shit.
I love. We're both saying we love Serena Williams.
You want to fight
I don't
about
know why.
this?
Yeah. The
We're
reason I
both
bring
gonna
that
fight
up.
over Serena Williams now. Everybody, just come
She's
back in
amazing.
5 minutes. Yeah.
Well, the reason I bring that he might not have known, and he probably did, but when he was sitting there having breakfast, when the waitress took away the plates, she asked Fishbein how it felt to be Dr. Brinkley's guest. Yeah, she knew who he was too, which is kind of funny. She knew who Fishbein was, so like this is like a, yep, that's Brinkley throwing a little. You like
Ooh.
those? You're my guest.
Hey, I saw some sun. Thought I'd throw a little shade. Like,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Well, Fishbein looked
your dad.
confused, obviously, because he's just like, what? And that might have been more confusion on just like, why are you asking me this? Well, she continued with, Brinkley still owns part of this hotel. And that grapefruit you just ate? Yeah, that came from his orchard. It's like, damn, they are both throwing shade at each other this whole time.
Damn, the level of pettiness here. I love this shit.
Well,
I'm here for it.
yeah. And as soon as she said that, he just slowly packed up his suitcase, his briefcase, and he went, time to go to the courthouse. And got in his,
if
his small
Jesus
little car.
was this petty, you know what I'm saying, towards Judas, things might have worked out differently. I'm just saying. Just saying. I know it's controversial, but I'm just saying. Should have thought about it.
That's true. Well, as the trial began,
Like, no.
Fishbein had 5 lawyers surrounding him. 5 lawyers, right?
Damn.
Brinkley, on the other hand, had a small father-son lawyer team that he had hired that were also local. And I want to say that this juxtaposition of this is very weird. And it's funny to me because Brinkley arrived like a celebrity. All these people. He even had like a famous fortune teller. No joke. A famous fortune teller in the car behind him, giving him like updates on how his day was going to go. Being like, oh, when was that person's birthday? Oh, don't worry. They're going to lose. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
And then in the trial, Brinkley was acting more of kind of like the folk hero, flipping that. And then Fishbein started out like the solitary, like smaller hero in the stories. He's like behind the scenes trying to help everybody. To end the trial, he felt like an overbearing corporation. And I feel like the juxtaposition of these two people in the trial and outside is just so weird.
Ooh, I see it, dude. He played the optics so fucking
Brinkley did,
well.
Yeah.
He fucking played those optics. He went in there and he was just like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, magistrate. I can only afford this paper bag as a tie today. And he's like, it's okay, Mr. Brinkley. Are you sure, sir? I can work more for a tie to respect you. He came in like fucking Tiny Tim. He's like, all I could afford was this local, incredibly fucking local, locally raised, historically known, but never respected free range lawyer and his free range lawyer son, who were homeschooled under the laws that you dictated. This is all I could afford.
Yeah. No, and what's funny is
he's
his
running
optics
it
were
so good, dude. He's running it so good.
And Morris Fishbein's lawyer, his like lead lawyer in the case, looked over and he was like, damn it. He was like, he knew and looked at like his team of lawyers and was like,
shit,
we shouldn't have had 5 yeah, he was like, we shouldn't have had 5 lawyers. Like, that's great optics. Like, he knew as soon as he got into the courthouse, he's like, damn it, we have these 5 overdressed lawyers and versus a mom and pop team.
Who are those motherfuckers with the fez hats? This is for a joke. Who are the motherfuckers with the fez hats? The Shriners.
Oh,
this
the
is
Shriners.
like,
yeah.
This is like if the Shriners and Raytheon teamed up for a burned children benefit. You know what I'm saying? This is the vibe that I'm
Are
getting
they
here, where it's just
trying to
like,
benefit burning children? Like they're trying to burn children?
who the fuck knows when the title says Shriners and Raytheon?
True, yeah.
Northrop Grumman
Mm-hmm.
blowing like Raytheon.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Shriners, and you're like, I guess they all have something in common. It's burning children.
Yeah, yeah. With special
This
guest
is the
speaker
vibe I'm
Elon
getting from this
Musk,
call.
like
Yeah. Elon Musk and one of the former leaders of the apartheid resistance. And you're just
yeah,
like,
it's like I
what
don't
the
know what's
literal
going on
fuck is
here. Yeah,
happening
I
here?
don't know what's going on here.
Brought to you by Emeralds Are Forever and EmeraldDiscounts.com. And you're like, shoot me. Like,
Yeah, brought to you by Walmart and Patagonia. It's like, oh my god, these couldn't be two more
Stop.
opposite companies.
This is
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
the Diabetes Association and Pioneer Sugar present to you today.
It's like makes no
Honestly,
sense what's going on.
honestly, that would probably be the most honest advertising America's ever seen. Anyways,
Yeah. They'd be like, we can pull everyone together, you know.
we can all unify over burning children. This is why this episode is dedicated to Gaza. FY,
Aw.
everybody, children are fucking burning that. No, that's not
Yes,
even
they
a
are.
punchline. That's
I
not.
know.
That's like literally,
That's
this is
sad.
genocide that's happening.
It's truth.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
sorry.
truth sadness.
Yeah,
It's truth sadness.
yeah.
Well, to bring
Which
it
is
up
why
a
you
little
should
bit.
go protest your local Shriners for why they're not protesting for children in Gaza. Raytheon knows what they're doing. The Shriners don't. Their hats are too tiny. This joke, terrible. It bombed. Speaking of, Joey, go ahead.
Oh.
No, but seriously, free Palestine.
Well, and to start the trial, they brought some of the locals up to vouch that, just like a normal trial, they vouched that they had seen the articles on the newsstands and such. And then they brought up Brinkley's assistants to give him an air of medical expertise, which they did.
Yeah.
The medical experts were traipsed up and down the witness stand. And, to be fair, I don't think there is a trial that has shown. I don't think that there has been a trial that has shown so many penises or vaginas or any sexual reproductive system in the history of, courts. To be fair, I don't think there has been, or as many goat balls.
Definitely as many goat balls, 100%. I will give you that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of what was it, like Gawker.com that got taken down by Hulk Hogan for Hulk Hogan's sex tape. It was a huge scandal. I think it was Gawker. I want to say it was Gawker. Doesn't matter.
No, it was Hulker.
Yeah, this is up there. Became Hawker afterwards. No, I mean that was like a huge hit on like free speech in this country, because it was like, how far is the line? Where's the line at? And that really moved the fence post a certain direction. It's an important case, but yeah, nothing has. Honestly, Pornhub hasn't seen this many dicks and balls or goat balls as this case has.
100%. There were so many diagrams that had to be explained and walked through so people could go through the surgery, and to show how
Joey's mind over the past 3 weeks.
complex it was. Yes, my mind is just like this trial. Well,
so many diagrams you had to see.
so many diagrams. And even the end of the freaking audiobook went into describing the freaking trial, went into detail of the surgeries. And I'm like, I thought I'd gotten past this. I thought that the trial was just going to be, okay, here's what happened in the trial. But then it just went into each assistant describing how the fucking procedure went. And I was like, man, you couldn't leave it alone.
You could have just had a vasectomy when it came to this part of the story.
I could have had an infosectomy and just take it out of my brain. Hopefully that's what's going to happen after we get done with this series. But it's a great deal of history. So the first day after the trial, Brinkley went straight to his radio station. He literally went and started talking about the trial, which is like, you don't really do that there, buddy. Yeah, you don't do that. And you know who's listening? The judge, the jury, because there's no sequester once they get out of that box. Like once you leave the room,
Finland,
Finland,
Lithuania,
Russia,
all of Nova Scotia, by the way, Russia, Northern
exactly.
Africa.
They're listening. They're all listening to this.
3/4 of the planet.
Yeah.
Because
And
it
this
came
is
on right after French lessons.
it did. It actually did.
Yeah.
Because he
Yeah.
learned how to cuss in French. He
Oh
was
my
just cussing in
God.
French. Yeah. Well, he had talked about the trial and said, "I just thought of a new contest.
Oh
$500
God.
to the person who best completes this phrase in 20 words or less." In
Oh my
quotations.
God.
I'd consider Dr. Brinkley the world's foremost prostate specialist because ... and you send it in to him. Basically, him trying to get all these reviews so he could send them to the trial or bring these people or go like, hey, $500 to you. Come on, let's get you on trial. We're going to get you up there. You know, he's bringing people into this.
He's trying to pump it up. Gotcha.
He's getting the heat going. Well, then he ended that radio broadcast with, quote, "If Dr. Fishbein goes to heaven, I want to go the other way," end quote.
Just
Through shade.
He's got the sicker burns, I'm going to be honest.
He does. Brinkley has some burns. Well, yeah.
He's some fucking sick burns.
We'll get to
hey,
some
man,
good
if he's
burns
going to
by
heaven,
Fishbein later.
Fishbinder coming in for the win. I'm going to keep calling him Fishbinder. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, on the third day of the trial, the judge, citing Fry versus the U.S., which was a prior ruling in the U.S. court system, said that 20 witnesses testifying for Brinkley could not testify. The reason he said that they could not testify is because they were just people who received the surgeries. They were basically like his Google reviews. And the judge himself said, like, I don't want this to become a circus. There's going to be like both sides are just going to, it's true. Both sides are just going to bring up 100,000 witnesses being like, his surgeries affected me badly. His surgeries affected me so good.
My
Look,
balls are bad. Yeah.
And he was like, that's not going to help this trial. The judge was actually pretty like, he was pretty on it in this case. He was like, oh, we're going to stop this before it happens. And so 20 of the witnesses that were going to testify on Brinkley literally solemnly just walked out of the courtroom. He's like,
just
nice.
Waddled out holding their balls out.
Yeah. And it was a smart move because, you know, he said the case could last forever. And he's like, I want to get to the facts. And those are just going to be opinions. So it was smart. Well, now the time came for Fishbein himself to get up on the witness stand. And Brinkley's lawyers took him sentence by sentence through the article he had written. It's pretty crazy. Like literally 2-part huge article that he had written. They took him line by line.
Dang.
They asked him where did he get the words and the evidence for such remarks. Fishbein said, quote, I took some of it from his own biography, A Life of Man, some from listening to him on the radio, and some from his own patients. God. It was like, he's just like, damn, like literally, Brinkley did this to himself.
I quoted you. Yeah.
He then went on to admonish Brinkley for not sending his surgeries and his own cure-alls in for review with the AMA, then saying that no real doctor he knew was pulling in excess over $1 million a year. The one thing that he said that hit the nail on the head is a quote that I love this. He said, quote, that's not medical practice. That's big business, quote.
That stands up. That stands the test of time. That stands the test of time. You're gonna get the BCR clap for that one. That was solid. That was solid. I am for solid medical shit, and this guy is supporting solid medical shit.
Yep.
I just kind of like Brinkley.
I know he again. This is not an unknown thing because Brinkley was well liked. Like the whole town loved him. Most of the United States
Yeah,
loved him. You know, and
yeah,
Fishbein kind of wasn't on. Again, this just hits so much. Fishbein
yeah,
was kind of an unlikable guy because he was the one that was
100%.
saying like, "Don't do this, don't do that stuff because it's bad for you,"
Yeah.
and it's the happens over and over and over and over again.
Mm,
You know, just like sometimes the bad guy,
yeah.
sometimes the guy who looks bad, this is going to sound weird to say. Sometimes the guy that is not well liked, let's say it like that,
Mhm.
could be the one who's actually helping you. It's like that friend that like tells you the things you don't want to hear and you get mad at him, and you're just like, "Oh, well, he was fucking right." And the guy that's been literally like, "Nah, you're the greatest. You're awesome," was the one that was trying to take advantage of you, you know?
Yes.
Yes. Well, that was his actual last comment on the stand. And I was like, he dropped the
Ooh,
mic after that because they said basically, we're done. Yeah, we don't need to talk to you
yeah.
anymore. Because he was meticulous too. What was so crazy is they like tried to rile him up. They try and we talked about earlier his personality. He wasn't the riled up character. He just pretty even
Yeah.
flow the whole time. And so they couldn't rile him up. Made it easy. Well, obviously, it was time for John R. Brinkley to take the stand. And unlike his radio commission trial, he didn't do as well. He wasn't as smooth. He wasn't
Ah, shit.
as great as he was. Well,
Damn.
Brinkley laid it on thick at the beginning. He talked about, just like you said earlier, he talked about, oh, poor me. This trial is making me lose my income.
I've
I
got the
like
vapors.
I'm losing on my income. And he, funnily enough, he changed the $1 million that he was making, the millions of dollars he was making, to thousands of dollars to seem more relatable.
Mm.
So he wasn't like, I'm
Mm.
losing my millions. He was like, no, this trial has caused me to lose the thousands of dollars that I was helping my family. He put it down for the common man.
Yeah, what's that? Joel is it Joel Olstein?
Joel
Hold on, we're
Osteen, yeah.
pausing the show.
Mm-hmm. Joel Osteen.
Austin?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I remember faces better than names. Yeah,
I think it's Joel Osteen. Yeah.
Joel Osteen. Whatever the fuck his name is.
Yeah, yeah.
Osteen.
Did he do this as well?
Osteen. No, okay, so here's the difference. See, like when Alex Jones got nipped, like you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying, when he got pinched,
AJ. Yep.
he was like, oh my god, like he eventually he went from strongman to folding completely on his character. This is
Yep.
what Brinkley is doing. This again, this goes back to BCR business advice, right? If you're going to be a good charlatan, this
Mm-hmm.
is how you do it. But part of the show is we are 100% trying to educate you as up and coming criminals. There you go. We said it
Mm-hmm.
live on air and we'll play it back in the recording. We're trying to
Mm-hmm.
make you better criminals. So here's the fucking deal. Don't be rich and come into a court case acting poor. Huge fucking weakness. What you do is you come in rich, but then flip the script to say, I give so much of my money away. I support so much of my community. I
Mm-hmm.
help so many people with this. So if you hurt me, you hurt an entire city.
Yep.
That's what Joel Osteen did when he gets fucking pinched for the millions of fucking dollars that he completely fucking embezzles,
He
right?
showers in. Yeah.
Yeah, where like Alex Jones tried to play in a character, but the point is like he let his ego suck everything up and he just took it all. It was like all or nothing. So like he was allowed
Yeah.
to be unrelatable to the jury or to the court
Yeah.
and then taken down. But if you are able to tell the court that 90% of the people that they know work for the person that you will fuck over with your decision,
Yeah.
you are going to be scared to take them down. This is very honest criminal advice from The Black Cat Report.
VCR. Yep.
Honestly, this is where he's fucking up. I'm telling you, Joey, this is where he's fucking up. Is you don't comment, like, he could have came in with the aesthetic, because that would have been great at the time. They didn't have video. You know what I'm saying? So all the cameras and shit, it would have looked great on him. And then the story would have been like, he came in and said, I'm just doing my best. I put all my money towards the town, towards throwing turkeys off the roof. Somebody has to pay for the spinal surgeries of all those people hit by turkeys last year. Those goat spinal surgeries. But
That was in
like,
Milford, but
I'm
he was
just-
probably doing the same in Del Rio too. He was
yeah,
doing
fuck
similar
it.
things.
He's throwing frozen turkeys everywhere at this point. But yeah, sorry. That's my con artist advice.
And that's
Con
true.
corner.
That he did kind of come in at the wrong way. At this time in the trial, it was still 50-50 though. It was still 50-50 on who was going to win because like he's still a fucking big name in Del Rio, Texas. Most of these people, and I want to laugh at the point of somebody asking, do they know who John Brinkley is to the jury when they're trying to weed out the people in the jury? And it's like, literally, I was just on his lawn watching an air show last week.
Yeah,
Like something like, I don't know.
My bar mitzvah was in his front yard.
Yeah. I imagine the biggest question, just like when I was, chosen for the jury, was like, would you let that affect your judgment? And I think that's such a great question because you might know these people, but if it doesn't affect, and you can literally lay it out flat of like, no, we're just got to deal with the law, then then you deal with the law. You can be a bipartisan. You can be a nonpartisan, I guess I would say. Nonpartisan, objective viewer and
non-bias. Yeah.
non-bias. Yeah. Well,
You got to come
Brinkley
in with
then.
I own everybody, and if you fuck me over, you fuck everybody over. Just saying.
Yes, I mean,
This is how you con.
He didn't want to con too much. I think he was getting old too. I mean, he wasn't even that old, but well. Brinkley went into detail about the goat gland surgery as well, just like I was saying earlier. The assistants did too, and he went into great detail because they asked him about it. They're just like, "Tell us about the goat gland surgery." Correct. Mm-hmm. And we'll reveal something about this in a minute that might be a little fun for everybody. Yeah. He even went all the way back to his beginnings and his first surgery was Stitchworth, the first goat gland transplant. Yep. He even brought up a new story that happened in that little time. The Stitchworths brought in one of their other relatives who was in the insane asylum in Nebraska because, and I quote, this is what they said, he was in the insane asylum because he was a masturbator.
Who amongst us hasn't spent a weekend or 3 in the local sanitarium for just such a reason? Let he who is without semen
be the
that's
first
the
to
first cum shot. That's what I always say.
That's what I've heard you say that a few times.
And we will get that splattered across the shirt.
Splattered across shirt that you can wash in the wash. It's machine washable. Actually, it's
It
hand
will
wash
always
only.
be.
It's hand wash only.
And it will always be slightly crusty.
Yep. Well,
is it a sock stuck to the back of your shirt? Anyways.
Well, that masturbator apparently, and I say that in maybe the dearest of terms, apparently became a manager of one of the biggest banks in Kansas City. So Brinkley testified. And I want to say that because before he was released from the sanitarium, and I know that sounds funny when I said that masturbator, but
Sorry,
he was in the insane
I'm
asylum.
not mature enough for this conversation.
I know, but he was in the
I'm
insane
not
asylum
mature
because
enough for. I'm just being honest. Don't hate
that's
me.
great. No, he was in the insane asylum because I don't think it was just because of masturbation, but I think that they had tried to put him in there to take some money. But supposedly, once he got the surgery, he like healed in some sort of way. I don't know how Brinkley described his healing process.
He went from 2 major problems to 1 when all of a sudden he stopped caring about masturbation.
Exactly. Yeah. And he became a manager of the biggest banks in Kansas City. I think that was a little bit of plug that Brinkley was like, "Hey, you should hire this guy." Yep. Well, throughout the questioning after this, they painted Brinkley as a smug and rich asshole. Easy to do. It was real easy. Yep. The defense was like, paint him as this. This look at him. Look at the money he's making. And he was dressed pretty well too. So like he didn't Brinkley was dressed well and looked the part of it. He also they described his like demeanor, right? They described Brinkley's demeanor in it, and he had a toothpick. And this was real. He had a toothpick the whole time, and slowly he would just sit there. And while the trial was going on, while he was watching, he's just kind of like staring off in his face, kind of just looking around, picking his teeth, picking his ear, stuff like that. Like he wasn't even caring about this trial. And it showed him as like an
Mm.
affluent, arrogant person. And so even with the, like you were saying before, even with those 5 lawyers on Fishbein's side, they were still able to paint him as the corporatized, greedy magnet, and Fishbein as
Yeah.
this well-educated orator, which is a weird way to say it. And even Fishbein himself was really good on the witness stand. He crushed it. He gave very simple answers, succinct, and like we had said last time, he pointed it out. He's not a fucking medical practice person. He's not a fucking doctor. He's a business. And like there's a difference.
Yeah.
And so it was easy to do. Well, one of the biggest things that broke open the case, they asked Brinkley, like I said earlier, to go through his whole operation and if there was any deviation in each of the surgeries, if they were an experimental part of the surgery or just a normal process. That's very important too. And he did do that in great detail. Now, I want to get into the last exchange in the court case because it seemed like this was the end of the case and it finally tipped the hand to the winner. And this is
Okay.
between the
Okay.
lawyer and Brinkley on the stand, right? The lawyer. Explain to us, how do you make that little testicle of a little. How old will the goats ordinarily? They're about 3 weeks. That little testicle of a young goat you claim that lived and
Hmm.
grew after you implanted it in a human testicle, some of them
Hmm.
seemed to grow and would enlarge, and the others, the majority of them, went through a process of absorption. Absorption? Yes, sir. They were gradually absorbed. You mean to say that little thing lived and was part of the human testicle and was living there after you put it in there? No, sir. I don't conceive of it as part of the human testicle. Lawyer, you don't claim you connected up the nerves or any blood vessels? Oh, Lord, no.
Mm.
You just took this little thing separate and put it in that slit in the testicle and sewed it up. Yes, sir. This is huge. And I don't know if you caught this
I
because you caught it, I bet. This in itself was the complete opposite of what he had claimed for more than 20 years. The testicles weren't grafted, they were pretty much just dumped into the ball sack. He was caught in a lie. And he even had said it at the beginning of the trial, the opposite of what he just said now. Whether it was like just freaking getting tired, end of the trial wooziness, he slipped.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know what's funny out there is like lawyer speak and like parts of trials is it can be so boring, but in some little tiny
Yes.
moments that can flip a case. It also
That's the significance. Yeah.
It also didn't help that he talked about his injections that he sent people home with afterwards. So I don't remember if I think I did talk about it at the end of the year, like during the year, right after you had your surgery. He would send you home with 12 little like vials, right? Little vials of this
And
purple watery liquid. I might not have said it, I might have.
I
I
don't
think I
think you
said it in
I
the
don't think you
first
ever talked about this. Yeah. Yeah. Break
maybe
it
in the
down. Break it
first
down.
episode. Yeah. So
Cook
at the
for
end
us
of
here.
your surgery, I'll bring it
Yeah.
up now, but at the end of his surgery, you had to wait a year. I did say it in the second one. You had to wait in a year before you could like do any kind
Yeah.
of thing. You had to wait a year to get your tubes uncut or whatever he was whatever he was doing at the time. Who
Yeah.
the fuck
No one
knows?
knows. He
Yeah.
didn't know.
Uh,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
he actually didn't, which is funny. He gave them 12 vials of what he called like something to stimulate what he called to stimulate the white blood cells. And that was basically the idea of it, is that you can start healing. The white blood cells will start attacking the
Yeah.
infections, which conveniently literally happened after he did the surgery on you. So go figure. But it was
It's that
12
meme where it's like,
vials. Yeah. The little,
like,
yeah, like,
yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But he sent him home with 12 vials. He didn't just give them to him, though. He made them pay $100 extra. And so
Of
remember when
course.
he stood at the doorway and made that person who was that woman lie on the deathbed, and he held the gun to her brothers? I said it in the second episode, to get
Yeah.
the $100. That's what those were for. And he made them pay for him and was like, these are going to help you heal. Well, the AMA for so long tried to get vials and tried to get Brinkley to send them those vials so they could check them and be like, these are magical, like these are magic, like fixed for fucking everything. Like they're gonna fix
Yeah.
so much stuff. If they're a magical cure, why didn't you send it to us? Just like Dr. Fishbein had said in the earlier part of the trial. Why didn't you send us stuff to like we could have been like, you're a genius? Well,
Yeah.
they finally got a vial. AMA finally got a vial a couple years later, and they found out in their tests of it that it was just water in the tiniest, like literally, I think they said comparing it the tiniest bit of purple dye, like indigo dye. And by the tiniest, I
Not.
meant that if you dropped enough of it into basically Lake Michigan, the vial itself was going to be how much indigo was in that vial. So if you get what I mean, like so like the
That made
water
no
in
sense.
yeah, the water in Lake Michigan is the water in the vial. If you put all of the indigo that was in the vial into Lake Michigan, it would only be the vial, the amount that's in the vial. So it was literally like a
If
vial's
you
amount.
pissed in Lake Michigan
Yeah, let's
on
say
the
it like that.
Michigan side, and then in Chicago, bottled it up, the amount of piss in that bottle is how much indigo is in that bottle. Is that what you're
That's the
saying?
best way to say it. That's the best way to say it.
The
Yes.
piss analogy. The piss
Yeah.
analogy.
Yeah. So none. Basically none. Yeah. You're right.
There was
That is the
nothing
best
there.
analogy.
This is
Yeah, there was not in there.
this was kind of if you hold it up to the light, I think I see a color. That's what was happening here.
Mm-hmm. And what's even worse is after he had said that
There's something
he went through
worse.
the whole rant. Yeah. He
Yeah.
admitted that he didn't know what the vials actually did that he was selling for $100. Literally said out loud, he was like,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
I
don't know.
really don't know. And they're like, do you
I
know
don't
what
know.
they did? He's like, I really don't know.
This was a fucking legal move because he already knew that he was fucking screwed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna guess with his team of fucking lawyers and shit. He knew that he was fucking screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And what was happening is he didn't know because I bet you he was fucking scared when they pulled out this like piss
The
bottle from
little
the other
vial.
side of Lake Michigan. And he's
Yes.
like, oh, fuck, there might be murder charges against me, or there might be this, or there might be that.
Mm-hmm.
Like his mind, I'm just going to guess here. His mind probably went fucking nuts with like potentials of repercussions. And it
Probably,
was
yeah.
better for him legally to say, I'm totally inadequate. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I didn't expect any of this to happen. I'm a complete charlatan. Than to take responsibility and say, it's supposed to do this. And then they could start trying to prove against him, well, you said that it did this and did this. it would be better to just say he was a fucking liar and was an
Yeah.
idiot than to try to argue another case. Guarantee you. I guarantee you.
Yeah. What's funny is the funny thing you say that is like they brought into the trial his own biography and they started reading him
Mm,
chapter names of the
that'll always
biography.
get you.
Yeah, one of the names,
How
well,
I
he did.
fucked over the
It's
AMA.
no joke
Fuck
in the biography.
Fishbinder. Seriously, I'll beat him in court. You ever beat off a fish? Watch next month as I beat off Fishbinder.
and what's funny is they read out the chapter titles to him. We're just like, so I do want to ask you, Dr. Brinkley, do you think you're the greatest surgeon in the world? And he's like, no, I don't think that. He's like, then why did it get written in
Yep.
your book?
Yep.
You know? And he's just like, well, I didn't. He kept saying, I didn't write the book. I believe that the guy who wrote the book, the poet, believed he said that. I don't know where he got that. And then he was
You know
like,
how
so
poets are.
yeah, and then he was like, "So you really think you can be like?" There was a part in there when he was like about con men and about how you con people out of their money. No joke. And they read that to him, and he was just like, "Well, I don't know where he would get that. I maybe he was just looking at my friend's life." And it was just like these little squirmy maneuvers, and that was way before he got caught off guard with the other stuff. But they was their little pricks to get him into this part, just their little pinpricks to get him to this. Well, obviously, after that last part, they didn't need to do anymore. They finished with like, all right, thank you. Defense rests. And so it was closing arguments time. And as much of the time they don't record closing arguments, but they did save this small snippet from what one of Fishbein's attorney said. He said, quote, I want to win that $500 prize that Dr. Brinkley's offering on the radio, but I'll make a change in the sentence. The sentence I'm offering the contest is this: Dr. Brinkley is the foremost money making surgeon in the world because he had sense enough to know the weaknesses of human nature and gall enough to make $1 million a year out of it. Drop the quote left. That
Is that
was.
my cue for
No,
no?
sorry.
No? All right,
No,
pausing.
cut that
Pausing.
off. Cut that off. No, just pause it. Yeah,
Oh god, oh god.
yeah. Yeah, he tried.
So what happens when you're a live studio audience, y'all?
Mm-hmm. Well, at the end of the trial, the judge went into listing all of the failures of John Brinkley. Him losing his medical license, his radio license, even quoted Brinkley's own book and said that anybody that Brinkley had libeled himself better than Fishbein ever could. Dr. Fishbein won the trial so easily. And Brinkley was defined as a quack. And just like that, the greatest surgery that Brinkley could have done was to himself. He did a money vasectomy because the sharks started swirling. It's still not the end.
I didn't
Brinkley,
play the music.
I know, no, I'm just saying it in general. Brinkley had pretty much lost everything. He was
I'm self-conscious now.
losing money heavily because all of the other goat nut doctors started taking his business. That, and he kept spending his money with abandon. After the trial, throughout 1938 and 1939, civil lawsuits started coming in from his former patients. Even his business manager sued him for malpractice. It was like the sharks were circling.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. He was about $3 million in debt to civil lawsuits. And then came the real vultures. The
Ooh.
IRS came to him for back taxes that he never paid. Because if we look in the trial, remember he was saying he was only making thousands of dollars instead of millions. And so they started researching into all of what he had done. In 1940, he wasn't done. And he was still living. He had taken over. Is the funny thing. It's called the Diddy School for Mechanics.
No comment would be a comment. So
For sure. All right. Well, he claimed in his advertising if you went to the Diddy School for Mechanics that you wouldn't be drafted for the war because they were starting to draft in 1940.
you were too young. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, the Better Business Bureau took him to court and found he had misappropriated money and then took that business away from him. He couldn't even buy a bucket, as he would say in basketball, at this point. Well, that's what you say. He can't even buy a bucket. I mean, he can't make a shot. Well, in early 1941, he filed for bankruptcy. He listed $300,000 in assets and then only $300,000, right? And then claimed over $1 million in debts. He moved most of his money to Minerva, which was a smart move. And then because they were still going after her now, she had to claim bankruptcy too because the creditors were swarming. And in mid 1941, Mexico and the US mended their relationship finally and shut down XERA. And I wanted to say this because this is important. That's his radio station down there. Upon ransacking it, they started finding news broadcasts that were going all over the border that kind of started to favor Nazi Germany.
Oh no. Is this why I shouldn't get a
Yeah.
full frontal tattoo of him?
Yep. Because
Oh,
for some time it was long rumored that he was sympathetic to the Nazis. And if I want to say it very clearly, he started going in some decently racist rants on Morris Fishbein because Morris Fishbein was Jewish. And a lot of people started saying that
Oh.
Brinkley was a member of the Aryan race and he loved Hitler.
I didn't see that coming with the fact that he is replacing people's balls with go balls
You
and that he
nobody
had
did.
a radio station in Mexico. Like I thought you know what I'm saying? Like if he would have been like white all right, kind of bullshit, like he would have went to Canada, which would have been way the fuck closer, by the way, than going to
Yeah, yeah.
Mexico. It's I don't know. Oh god, that's just like he went full on Henry Ford with that shit. It's just kind
He
of like,
did.
bruh, why you
There's a funny
gotta
thing too. I
why you
don't
gotta be a
there's
horrible piece of shit,
Yeah, there's two things too that I also wanted to mention too. I didn't write it in the script, but I want to mention that he in his swimming pool when he came back from Berlin and it was just after
Yeah.
the Olympics. He appreciated the clean streets, he appreciated everything at that time. Hitler had just taken over and cleaned up all the streets from all the
The streets are
bad people.
clean.
Yeah. And he
Says no more
started
of these pesky bagel shops. They're all gone. Okay, like why do you want bread with a hole in the middle? I've always said that. I've always said that.
he very much loved Nazi Germany. And one of his quotes, he said that the Nazis understood the science of worship. Ooh.
No, they didn't. No, they fucking
That's what he
did.
said, though. That's what he
The
said, though.
Nazis, even the fucking SS and shit like that, didn't even 90% of them didn't even believe their own weird occult religion that Nazi Germany tried to start up. Like the National Socialist Party tried to start its own fucked up weird religion because it outlawed Christianity and every
Mm-hmm.
other fucking faith possible. 99% of the people who were just like, yeah, this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard of. They still celebrated Christmas and shit. I don't
Yeah. The science of worship, meaning worshiping Hitler.
propaganda.
Yeah.
Goebbels
Goebbels and
had it
Hitler.
going
Yeah.
full swing at the time. Yeah, that makes
Yeah. And
sense.
he looked at that more than anything. When he returned from Berlin as well, in his pool, he put in the ceramic tiles, that are around the pool, swastikas.
It's actually just a Buddhist Roman salute symbol.
Porkies. Yeah, yeah. But no, he put those in.
The reason why I have Elon Musk doing Zig Heil is because it's actually a Roman salute symbol from the future. Which is why it has nothing to do with Nazis. Chill out, everybody. That's what actually
That's
happened.
what he was saying. Yeah, he was saying that.
100%.
But
100%.
he went full bore. And a lot of the parts in there, he went full, like, weirdly. He went full Christian, like full death and brimstone on the radio station. So, which makes sense because then that starts leading over to his, like, let's hate immigrants. And then he started fighting against Fishbein, who was Jewish.
Which is why we're going to Mexico.
Exactly, yeah. Well,
he is borderline a less endearing Kenny Powers in Eastbound and Down, just ending up in Mexico.
The worst kind.
Yes.
Well, I wanted to save this whole part to last because I wanted you guys to like him until
it worked.
You're like, oh shit, he actually is a Nazi and he supports their ideals in the end. Well, in 1941, November of 1941, he finally thought, everything was lost. He had a heart attack and was bedridden. While he was bedridden, the U.S. Postal Service finally brought charges against him, and a federal marshal showed up at his bedside and gave him his indictment. And to what would be insult to injury, one of the charges was that he had falsely claimed that John R. Brinkley was a great surgeon, scientist, and physician. He's basically saying your whole life's work is false.
Damn.
Nice. U.S. Postal Service, they got petty. A little late, but they got petty too. Minerva was also arrested for mail fraud. She's just as involved as he was, so there was no hiding her either. She was just as involved. The whole empire was collapsing. It's like the end of a movie when everyone starts getting their comeuppance finally, just when you thought they were going to skate away, just in the middle of his trial, when he had a little bit of the upper hand and he was like, oh no, that is liable. He was so close. And right before he died, Minerva and John sent, just because they still loved each other, love letters to each other. They weren't close at this time because she went to go take care of business stuff and try to get him out of the, basically
trying to keep the family out of prison.
Mail fraud. Yeah.
Busy with family shit.
She was busy. And right before he died, they sent love letters to each other, described their life and how much they loved one another. And basically, John was like, "Please take care of the kids. I don't have long for this world." And John R. Brinkley died on May 26, 1942, in San Antonio, just 1 year into the start of World War II. So we will never know if implanting goat balls into our troops would have made them super soldiers. Never know. John R. Brinkley died as one of the most famous people at the time. His life had taken him from simple little son of a rock farmer to one of the most famous surgeons of the time, getting invitations to the biggest parties in LA, owning 3 yachts, a mansion, a host of cars, finding a love of his life that would help build his empire with him, as well as help raise his son. But we cannot honestly forget the lives that this man ruined with his experimental surgery. Thousands of people who were maimed and sometimes killed by the knife and mind of John Romulus Brinkley. He, of course, had his fall, but most people could not get the justice they deserved. Though he did do bad things, it can't be denied the profound effect he had on history and how much of what we see today happened yesterday. Boom, boom.
It almost ate a stink bug in the background and almost threw up on camera. So that's what I was.
Beautiful. All good.
You're like, I don't care. Play the music, Gil. And you know what?
Poor Salem. That's Salem. of Joey on April 7th. Live streams that you can catch us on here, too. And see all of our stupid mistakes, our silly jokes that don't make the episode, all the cool stuff. Gil, do you have anything to add?
The goddamn thing. Other than if you have made it this far in the episode, whether you're watching the live premiere of this episode on the following Friday, which will be the first Friday in April, on YouTube or somewhere else, here's the dealio. We have a set of 12-month gifts. That's fucking 12-month gifts of our Patreon for a paid tier, which we're just giving away for free to kind of help bolster numbers, to get folks in, to show folks that it's awesome. And because, frankly, we suck at being capitalists. So all you gotta do, hit us up on Instagram, hit us up in the comments of this episode, wherever the fuck you're finding it. And I'll send you a short link. I made a custom short link, and it'll, boom, hook you up like that with 12 months of our paid tier Patreon for free. That's all I got, bud.
Well, we want to get into thanks to our Patreon listeners. Like we do every episode, we want to give our little shout-outs. So, we want to thank Little Mystery, Bobby, Peak of the Mountain Productions, Tim, Max, Ian, Morgan, Dragon, Miller's Mom, Rissa, Leader of the Chicken Cult, Rachel, Ad, Jade, Jack, Lucas, Yellowman, Wayne, Alyssa, Bree, Michael, Paranormal Girl Podcast, James, and always last but not fucking least,
Poppy Kitty!
we will be right back next week with another episode of ACR. And we are excited because we'll be getting into a new topic. I can finally get balls off the brain. Gil is ready for his time to shine. So for this week, we would like to say
We'll see you all next week. We love you.
we do. Bye.
Bye!